Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tonia. I'm a 400 level student of the Department of Medical Rehabilitation, University of Nigeria Enugu campus. And just like I promised you guys, in today's video I'll be talking about my entire JAMB story, how I was able to gain admission to study medical rehabilitation physiotherapy in UNN. So do you know what it means to be the best graduating student in science? Like, I was the best graduating student from my class, which is science class, but then I was among the last set of people to gain admission. I got admission 3 years after secondary school. That means I wrote JAMB 3 times before I was able to gain admission to study this course. But the truth of the matter is, I was not planning to study this medical rehabilitation. What I intended to study was medicine and surgery, like every other science student. So what happened? So I'm going to be brutally honest. By the time I got to SS1, SS2, I was struggling with physics and chemistry, and then we lost most of our teachers that knew how to teach very, very well. We lost most of them. They got employment in government school, and of course they left because my school was a private school. Of course, government school pay more, so they left. And so we got new teachers, and no, they weren't teaching us very well. So what most of my classmates did was that our teacher that left to another school, they got his phone number, they contacted him to be teaching them privately. So they contacted him as their private lesson teacher. I was trying to convince my parents to get him for me to also be my private teacher, but they were just who is going to believe that you need a private lesson teacher when you're always coming home with first position? Like, you're always complaining, you don't know this subject, but you still come back home with first position. That was the issues that was in. So it was kind of, they didn't really take me seriously, so they didn't give me a lesson teacher. So by the time I reached SS3, everything had compacted. I was struggling with chemistry and physics, and JAMB, you have to write English, physics, chemistry, and biology. These are the 4 compulsory subjects for medical courses like medicine. So those are the 4 courses I wrote in JAMB. So after my first JAMB, I scored 260, and I had always wanted to go to Nnamdi Azikiwe University, courtesy of my senior sister. So after scoring 260, I wrote post-UTME because at that time there was post-UTME and I had 70 over 100. So my mark kind of increased to 270 if I'm not mistaken. Somebody had actually told me then that I will not get medicine and surgery, that I should switch to med lab that time. But my strong head, I didn't want to do med lab. I just continued with my medicine and surgery with faith that God is going to, do something. But along the line, I didn't get admission that time. My sister was like, I should buy supplementary form and change to anatomy, physiology. Then later on, after year 1, I will switch back to medicine. But my spirit did not really flow with that pattern. So I left it. The next year, I worked extremely hard. Like, I left Facebook, I left Instagram, no YouTube, no nothing, no social media activities. In fact, that time, if anybody called me to go out, I'm not going anywhere. I was always indoor. I wake up by 5 o'clock, start reading, read till 12. The only thing that I did was house chores. House chores, book, church, pick my sister, cook, finish. That was all I did, just to make sure that I would get medicine and surgery the second time. So my hard work paid off, and I got 291 in JAMB. And I thought we were going to write post-UTME that year in music. Unfortunately, that COVID, I don't know, was it strike, happened, and there was no post-UTME, so they used JAMB. They used WAEC result, and my WAEC result, I had B3 in all the courses I needed. The one that I even had A1 was now agric and civic education, which I didn't really need, and so my JAMB score was stuck at 290. So I didn't get to 300, and somebody told me again, you're going to waste your JAMB score, change to something. My mother was like, why don't you change to nursing? So instead of you staying back at home, at least you'll be sure that you get admission. But I didn't want to do nursing. With my strong head, I still went ahead and applied for medicine and surgery. First list came out, my name wasn't there. Second time, my name wasn't there. Although you immediately don't bring out lists like UNN, so this is how we just know that they release list when people start announcing that, oh, my caps have changed, but I will check my caps every single day only to see no admission. Jesus, I was heartbroken. My sister once again was trying to convince me to buy supplementary form to anatomy or physiology because those were the only medical courses, microbiology, biochemistry, on the supplementary form. But I couldn't find myself actually buying supplementary form to apply for those courses, so I just left it there. I was completely shattered and heartbroken because of that. I even applied for a scholarship, a MasterCard scholarship to study abroad because of that, but it didn't work out for me either. So after a few months of depression, of tiredness, all my friends got admission. You know the weird thing about it? I was in Uyo, my friends got admission. I knew they got admission because they told me they did their matriculation, and I patiently waited. I knew when was the matric date, but I patiently waited for even one of them to invite me for their matric, but nobody invited me. So I that day Facebook, everybody were just posting, happy matric, this and that. I was just scrolling with my heart brokenness. I was even thinking that maybe at least if somebody invites me, I'll just go celebrate with them, be happy with them. Although I felt bad I didn't get, but I was happy because my friends got, but unfortunately they didn't invite me, and honestly I felt really, really, really bad about it. Yeah, felt really bad about it, and I chatted them up. I was like, people did not even invite me for your matriculation or congratulations. And they gave me some excuses, but that's okay. So my third jam, like, I tripled my efforts. The effort that I put in the second one, I tripled it. Like, there is no question that you bring from JAMB biology, those past questions that I could not answer. Like, every single question in that JAMB biology, I know the answer. Before you even mention the options, I know the answer. In fact, it got to a point that I can even arrange the options according to how it's written in that book. I was done for biology. I did the same for English. I did the same for physics. Although physics, I was kind of, it's more of calculation, so it's not something that will just stick in my memory, but I knew most of the questions. Although chemistry was the only subject that gave me a bit of headache. So on the day of my jam, my third jam, there's no prayer. I did not pray. I was always in the chapel. I was always praying, fellowship, asking God, reading. Oh God. On the day of my jam, I wrote my jam, but I don't know whether I should say medicine was not for me, because on that day I came in with confidence. But after starting my exams in 10 to 20 minutes, my system went off first time. They had to go and start looking for another system to set up another system for me. And when they finally did, more than 30 minutes have gone, and they brought me there and they told me, don't worry that your time was not counting. We are going to reset it. You still have your full time. That was a lie, because when I started writing the second time, it wasn't even up to 20 minutes. My system went off again. And I thought it was like the first one. And I was looking at the time on my system. It showed me that I still had about 30 minutes to go. No, I'm not really sure of the time, but it showed me that I still had a lot of time to go, but I went to complain to the man that my system was off, and that was when he told me, exam is over, you can go home. That was when I looked around and realized that everybody's system was going off, meaning that that period of time my system went off. My time was actually ticking, so everybody's system went off, and I left heartbroken. I was crying. If you saw me that day, I was devastated on the road. In fact, it's only God that brought me back home safe that day, because I was so weak, so tired, like all my efforts gone like that, just because of a malfunction from a system that wasn't even my fault. I went back home that day. My sister just asked me how was the exams. I couldn't even say anything. I just went inside the room and started crying. Like, I cried. My sister was consoling me. It was so bad that I had already given up on admission. In fact, I told myself that period, this jam, whether my results show or my result does not show, this is the very last jam. If I don't see my results, if I don't get admission, I'm not writing jam again. We forget about school. I even stopped. I wasn't even preparing for post-UTME anymore. I started showing up on Facebook. I started learning digital marketing. I'm not a social media person per se. It's all these things that I passed through that actually pushed me to start showing myself on social media, to start posting on YouTube, all those kinds of things, to start even chasing after money. That was now my idea. Since I can't get my book, let me go for money. So I started learning other skills. I started selling airtime, data, and all that. In fact, already COVID and all those things came in, but I don't know, one day I went to church. I received a message. It's as if somebody poured a resurrection water on me again. Antonia, don't give up. So I went and dusted my books. A few months post-UTME, I dusted my books, started reading again. My mother told me, you've applied to UNITEC 2 times, they've not given you admission. This time around, apply to UNM. So I applied to UNM. I wrote post-UTME and I got 340. Biology, I got 340 over 400. Biology, I had 15 over 15. Physics, I had 13 over 15. English, 13 over 15. And in chemistry, I had 10 over 15. So 340. Now imagine if JAMB did not mess me up. with my 2.9 with 2.4. I ended up having 2.43 on my third JAMB attempt because of that system glitch. So imagine if it hadn't messed me up and I had written my JAMB properly. At least, who knows? I would have been. My score would have been at least 320 if JAMB had gone well for me. My system didn't mess up, but let's just say that's the will of God. So I still applied to medicine and surgery to show you how my coconut head is, even with my 2.43. They told me to change it, but I didn't want to change it. But along the line, I came in contact with physiotherapy. Honestly speaking, I didn't know there was a course like physiotherapy. I just knew there was a doctor, there's a nurse, and those lab people that used to check for malaria. So when my sister asked me to change to med lab now, I'm like, I don't want to be among those people that will be testing people whether they have malaria and typhoid, that kind of mentality. That was what I had. I didn't like med lab. I don't want to be a nurse because I know I can't do it. So along that period of time, my dad fell sick and it required physiotherapy. That was my first encounter with physiotherapy. But the way they did the physiotherapy for my dad, they didn't allow me to come in. They just let me to stay outside. So, but they gave my father this. The sickness affected his mouth, his jaw. So he needed to exercise. So they gave him one stuff like balloon that they constructed. So that was my first. I'm like, so there's the kind of part of medical field that you can even treat patients without those drugs and surgery and all of that. That was my first encounter. Then the second encounter, my mom brought my grandmother from the village. She's elderly and she had an issue and one part of her body was affected. So I started taking her for physiotherapy. So I watched everything they were doing for her. The woman there, she's a physiotherapist. She owned that place. She's a doctor, doctor of physiotherapy. She owned that place. She owned the instrument. She was in charge. I saw what she was doing and I saw how she was doing all the massage, specifying exercise, diagnosing her and all those things. And I fell in love with it. I just said the words are telling me, Antonia, this thing that this woman is doing, don't you think you can do this thing even better? So that was how I decided that I'm going to do physiotherapy. So that was already late. They started giving admission. So the medicine and surgery didn't work out for me, and I was lucky. I saw physiotherapy on the supplementary form, so I bought it, and that's how I ended up studying physiotherapy in University of Nigeria, even though it wasn't my plan. And do I regret it? No, because it's not looking like medicine and surgery probably wasn't even for me, and I found my place. I found my position, and what I went through. YouTube helped me. There's this lady that usually creates YouTube videos. During all those times, I always watch her videos. She'll be telling stories of her life, of her delays, everything she went through, and that was what that kept me going. And that's one of the reasons I opened a YouTube channel. So to encourage you, if you are going through something like me, like I did, don't give up. Be strong. God is working. He's going to direct you to the path that is meant for you. And then you will look at it and be like, all these things that happened eventually happened for a reason. Yeah, because honestly, if everything had gone according to the way I planned, I wrote JAMB the first time, got admission, you will not see me here on YouTube. I will not be on Facebook. You will not find me anywhere on Facebook, anywhere on Instagram, YouTube, see me in any social media platform. That was the kind of life I was living, and I wouldn't have met my husband. Yeah. So everything happens for a reason. So if you watch up to this point, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in my next video. Bye.